Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined by my co-host George Aldridge, and today, for this episode of Film Club, we are going to be reviewing Christopher Nolan's epic Inception. How Film Club works is that at the end of our main show we have recommended movie, and each week we take it in turns picking a movie that vaguely ties into the main show. Obviously this week was Ant-Man and it was my turn to pick. I went with the whole heist angle, and this is probably one of the best heist films there is out there, with an awesome, mind-boggling twist to it. So, we're going to just jump straight into the review today. So, kicking off, what we'll do is we'll go into when we sort of first saw the trailers and what we were expecting in our first time seeing the film. So, I'll jump in quickly first. I remember when the trailers came out, and already at that time I was a massive Nolan fan. Like, I'd seen all his previous films. You had Batman Begins, Prestige, Memento, all the good ones. And yes, so I was kind of sold already on the name. Like, I knew it was a Nolan film, it was going to be awesome, and the trailers did an awesome job of not showing too much. Like, it posed a vague idea of what the film was going to be about. It mostly showed the visuals and the mind-bending reality of the world it was going to be. And right from there, I was like, Nolan does dreams and a heist movie. I'm sold.
Yeah, this is very different with me because the first time I saw this was actually the January after it came out, because I missed it at the cinema due to a stupid visit to the fucking zoo. I was meant to be seeing, I was meant to have seen it at the IMAX with my family, but apparently it was too confusing according to someone's friends, not mine, my sister's. So I missed out on that at an IMAX. So I didn't really get it till Christmas. Saw it in January, but I do remember leading up to it. I knew it was done by the Batman director. It was as I was getting into film, so I think I was in Memento. I hadn't seen Prestige at the time, so I was really borderline getting into it. And then this was one of the main four that kind of really jumped up my attitude into film. And I just remember the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, and it was incredible. See, although what annoyed me most was when I saw it, A, it was DVD, B, it was on a 42-inch TV. I kind of sat there like, I want to see this at an IMAX, and I'm going to go out and buy the Blu-ray straight away, which I did do. And I eventually upgraded it to the briefcase edition.
Oh yeah, I saw that edition. You get the little spinning top with it. That looked awesome.
Yeah. And last week I got the vinyl, which has finally been re-released.
Of the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a clear vinyl disc, which is incredible, and it's beautifully played on the loudest speakers in the house.
Oh, I see. You've gone old school with it. I've got the just the regular CD version of it.
Obviously, I've got that as well.
Yeah.
That's on my iPad, but you can't go wrong with vinyl.
Yeah, and like, what a film to follow up The Dark Knight with. Like, I mean, when he did Batman Begins, you know, he didn't go straight into Dark Knight. He broke that up with The Prestige, which is another fantastic film. Then he does Dark Knight, and it's like, where does he go from here? Makes Inception, and I'm going to be honest, this is my favourite Nolan movie. This is perfect from anything that came before or after. This is without doubt my favourite. And to your point,
it's such a. Oh, sorry.
no, carry on.
No, I was going to say, I was just going to mention that favourite-wise, I think this is my second, but I think it's his best-made film, if you can comprehend.
Yeah, totally. And to your point earlier when you said that people were saying it was confusing, that was sort of all I saw from, like, the press, like, early reviews that came out and word of mouth and stuff. I still went to see it anyway because I'm fine with that, but most of the things, and even with Interstellar as well, it's like, oh, you really need multiple viewings on this film. And I'll agree that multiple viewings, certainly on Inception, can help you pick up on bits you might have missed, but in terms of understanding the plot, I mean, it's all there. If you sit down, pay attention to it, then I don't see how you can be confused with it. It is complex, but I don't think it's confusing, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. When I sat down, I saw it. I was like, "This is fine." Okay. When I saw it again, it made it slightly easier because you kind of know what's happening. That's the same with every film ever made. With this one, it was kind of like, "Oh, it's not that bad." So I don't get what people are moaning for. And it was actually nice to see something rather intelligent that was an expensive movie.
Yeah, and going off from that, I mean, you look how much it made. This is an original movie, Chris Nolan original movie. I don't know if it because usually it's him or his brother come up with like a short story, don't they?
He did all of this. I think it's slightly based off The Following, where I think he uses the same character name. He uses Cobb in The Following.
Yeah.
And I think in this he kind of touches it, but the stories are that he was writing this before Batman Begins, that he'd researched in his dreams for years, so this was clearly his big passion project. And I still think that the only reason he did Dark Knight Rises was because he said, "Give me Inception and I'll do it." And I think that's the way it all paid off.
Definitely, and I mean, it was done on a budget of 160 million, took in 825.5 million according to Wikipedia, and this wasn't in 3D. This was just a regular 2D price, and to get that much is incredible. I mean, repeat viewings on this film, it just immensely so. Like, Nolan's probably the filmmaker where I repeat view his films the most at the cinema.
Yeah, I think it's similar for all of them. I can't remember Interstellar. I think I did three, the same as Dark Knight Rises. I think with it though, also the fact it was, I remember it was July, it was a summer blockbuster, same time as Toy Story, so the fact it made so much money in one of the hardest periods of the year, especially for original films, as Tomorrowland will show, it's incredibly successful on its own feet at that.
Yeah, and I've spoken about this before. I had a double cinema day. I saw Toy Story 3 first, was an emotional wreck, and thought I need to see something just to take my mind off Toy Story. Went straight into this with a bunch of friends, and we were just blown away by it, beginning to end. We were hooked from the very first scene all the way up until the end, which we'll get to later. And checking on Wikipedia, it won 4 Academy Awards. It won Best Cinematography, Sound Editing, Sound Mixing, Visual Effects, all of which are impressive. And at least it was nominated for Best Picture, because Dark Knight, I think, got snubbed, didn't it? I don't think that was up for Best Picture, but that's usually the case with superhero films, regardless of how well they're made.
Yeah, I think that was the one where everyone thought, right, they're going to do it. They didn't. There was a massive outrage. Then they changed the rules the following year. And I think with Inception, he should have been nominated for Best Director as well, but he never did. He still hasn't, which is incredible.
And we'll get into the film more now. You can probably explain it better than me.
Yeah, so basically, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's in trouble with Ken Watanabe, and Ken Watanabe says, do this on him. This is Inception. You go into his head, you plan an idea. He sticks with the idea from the dream to reality. And it's to disband the company, so Ken Watanabe's company can become the biggest thing in the world, and Leo can go home and see his family for the first time in God knows how many years.
Yeah, and the plot itself, that may sound pretty simplistic on its own, but when it goes into the rules of it and you get into more Cobb's backstory and the haunting visions that keep coming into the dreams, and then obviously the meme now, dream within a dream within a dream, it gets incredibly complex. But I don't know how a human mind could come up with this. Like, I said this when I saw it, and I still say it now. Nolan is a genius for coming up with this plot and all the intricate rules of it and everything like that. It's mind-blowing, literally.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with passion projects, though. He would have had it in his head for so long that he knew he'd get the execution right. It's like fair play to that. I mean, if you look at Interstellar, he kind of took his brother and Spielberg's story and put his own vision on it, and it works to his credit. That comes up as a Nolan film. And it's just interesting to see what he does. I mean, you can look at Batman, he's Nolanized it. Look at every film he does, you can put other directors on board and you always kind of a completely different outcome, and it's kind of the sign of him becoming the auteur that he's got his signature touches, and it's very noticeable now, especially the recurring cast.
And and we sort of saw that same thing with Interstellar as well. But if we were comparing the two, because I do think these films are very similar with each other, I do prefer this one. I think this is the more cohesively made one out of the two. But so that's sort of the plot synopsis. If we get into the characters a bit more now, because I think this is probably one of the strongest ensemble casts, and from this film we've sort of seen him. He's always done this, but he always tends to use the same actors in his films, and I love when directors do that. So we'll kick off with DiCaprio playing our main character, Cobb. Again, this was sort of one of the films where I saw this resurgence with him. I think I talked about this when we talked about the Divergent, not the Divergent, sorry, the Revenant trailer. This was where I started seeing DiCaprio coming up as like one of these big actors, to the point now where he's my favourite. And he's fantastic in this film. He's in the action scenes, and then especially with him, it's all the emotional scenes he gets with Marion Cotillard, and those are my favourite scenes in this film. I think like their chemistry together is brilliant, and you really get this sense of this loss that he's gone through. I mean, he saw his wife, throw herself off a building, kill herself, and also the fact that he's already lived a lifetime with her. We get this sense that he's really haunted by this, and the moments where he brings her into his dreams, and the really terrifying moments where all like the people in the dreams that populate the dream will just like stop and stare at him. Like those moments are perfect, I think.
Yeah, I think with DiCaprio, this was one of the first films like saw of him post Titanic and Romeo and Juliet. So this probably actually is the first one where I kind of sat back and I was like, oh, you know what, it's decent. Then you start kind of going through. I started going to see films like The Departed, stuff like that, and it was interesting seeing him because I knew him as that kid, but now he was this kind of grown man that was taking it seriously. But he suits the role so perfectly, and it's so believable. I mean, the Marion Cotillard scenes with him steal it all, and I think the best moment of him is when she kind of jumps off, and it's not this pathetic scream or anything. Is kind of like God no, and he like holds his like head and stuff, and it's so well done. I remember seeing that for the first ever time, and I was completely engaged.
Yeah, and that scene in particular, I remember that so well in the cinema. It's probably the scene I remember from it the most. The bit where he's trying to talk her down on the opposite window ledge. When she jumps off, I got this massive rushing sense of vertigo for some reason when she jumped off. Like, I felt like I jumped off the building as well. And I think that's complimented as well. We'll get into it later, but Hans Zimmer's score in this film,
Oh no,
it's definitely one of his best, and the end track time, but we'll talk about that in its own section because I think it deserves it. But in terms of other cast members as well, you've got a great leading man, obviously with DiCaprio, but it's also got probably the strongest supporting cast I think I've seen in any Nolan film. You've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy, and both of those actors. This was really, I think, the first film I saw from both of them. Like, I know before this, I think Hardy had done Bronson and stuff like that. Gordon-Levitt. Is he the guy from 500 Days of Summer? Is it?
yeah,
Is
he
he
was.
in that?
I remember him from when he was very young. 10 Things I Hate About You. He was in that.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that little kid's growing up, and then with Tom Hardy. I mean, this was arguably his breakthrough to America. But
Yeah.
I'd seen Bronson at this stage, and I kind of go, "What the hell is Bronson doing here?" And he's just like so like calm and collected. And obviously, post this, you get Warrior, Rises, all of it, and now he's just massive. And it was just awesome seeing that.
And I love films like this as well, where you totally need this in a heist movie. Each character has their role to play in the grand scheme of it, and Tom Hardy has this brilliant ability where he can sort of masquerade himself and appear as anyone in the dreams, and it's great to watch. And again, this is where I first saw Tom Hardy, and he's just hilarious. It's that bit where they're in Mombasa and he's sitting in the cafe and he's like wisecracking and stuff. And right from there, I thought this is going to be an actor to watch. And I mean, you look at him now. Tom Hardy's like one of the best actors in the business.
Yeah, and I remember off one of them like petty awards. I think he won Line of the Year, and the "You Mustn't Be Afraid to Dream a Little Bigger, Darling," and he just
Yeah.
gets out the grenade launcher, and that kind of epitomises not him as an actor, but what you're going to get from him. But it's the little things at work where his back and forth with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Jordan goes, "Oh, can you finally read now?" and stuff. So they're kind of like taking the piss out of each other, but it works so well. And I think the cast, they seem they're all getting along. And you're right, they perfectly are all needed as part of the heist. And you can kind of look at Ellen Page as well, because as the audience, we're brought in as her character, where we're introduced to it all flesh off. So what they tell her is kind of relevant to us as the audience, which is the best way of explaining a film like this.
Yeah, totally. And I was going to bring up that point myself. We talked about this in the Edge of Tomorrow review with Tom Cruise's character. The best way, especially in a film like this, which is very exposition heavy because they've got so many rules to bring into the story. Now, most people would probably think that's a bad thing, but it works in the film precisely for the fact you just brought up. We are viewing this world through the character of Ellen Page, and when she's asking all these questions and bringing up all the rules as she's trying to understand it, we ourselves are understanding that, and that's the best way to get around it without it sounding clumsy and exposition heavy. Her notable scene where Cobb's sort of escorting her around the environment of Paris, I believe it is, and he's explaining all this stuff to her. It's very reminiscent of the scene from The Matrix where Morpheus takes Neo into the world and he's explaining about the agents and all stuff like that, how the world works in the computer world. And I do think there are a lot of parallels you can draw to The Matrix, the whole being plugged in and going into like a dreamlike realm. And then you've got other things in there. You've got bits of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, other sort of science fiction elements to it, very dreamlike, obviously, because it's set in the dream world. And then as well, we can talk about Marion Cotillard if you like, because this was, again, I'd seen her in, I think the first film I saw Marion Cotillard in was Big Fish, I believe, Tim Burton film. She was great in that as well. But here, she really strikes that balance of she's a very sympathetic character, but when she wants to, she can be terrifying, and that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing her portrayal of Lady Macbeth in the Michael Fassbender Macbeth film coming out later this year. I think she's going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah, she's quality, and I think hindering on to Diana Rises incredibly briefly. She's so good at Inception at being bad. I think they kind of cast her in Diana Rises knowing it, but I don't think it works as well. But that's a conversation for a different time. But you can see these minor parallels with it. But in this, it's just whenever she comes on screen, she has this presence, whether it's stabbing him in the stomach in the first 10 minutes or taking out Cillian Murphy in level 3. She's just fantastic all the way through. And it's when you get the flashbacks, you can kind of like feel it when she's going, oh yeah, we lived. And you find out that they planned Inception onto her, and you really start to pity her.
Yeah, and this is where it's so perfectly written. She is that doubt in Cobb's mind, which plays all the way through, right up until the final scene. She's so adamant in her belief that they're still in a dream, and he thinks they're in reality. And what the film does perfectly is it always keeps making you constantly bring that up in your head, whether you do believe it's reality or not. And we'll get into that when we have our interpretations on the ending. But you just mentioned Cillian Murphy as well. Cillian Murphy is such a phenomenal actor, and I mean, before this, we'd seen him in Batman Begins. And to me, I think he was the strongest thing in that film, criminally underused in that film as the Scarecrow. And now he's on to stuff like Peaky Blinders. He comes up all over the place, and he's always been sort of a core supporting character actor for Nolan's films. And I'd like to see more of him. He's such a great actor, and in this as well, he plays the son to this business tycoon, and he has a very strained relationship with his father, played by the late Pete Postlethwaite, who's also amazing in this film. And then through this course, he finds like acceptance at the end of it, and you see that through that ending montage. And I just think he's perfect in this film.
He's great, and I mean, I haven't seen a lot of them, I'll be honest, but I've seen stuff like Sunshine where when he's given the lead, he can do well with it. But you're right, Scarecrow, I loved him as that. He was creepy, he was great, and it's nice he got the little cameo in the Dark Knight, which was pretty cool. But I wouldn't say, I'm not sure if you've watched Peaky Blinders, but it is fantastic. I mean, he's incredible, and now as a series, it's got Tom Hardy in for season 2. He's going to be back season 3. It's becoming quickly one of my favourite programmes, and yeah, it's awesome. He's great. And in this, talking about Pete Postlethwaite, I'm glad it was brought up because the chemistry, although he doesn't have a lot to say or do in it, he's fantastic when it hits it, and this can time in with the Hans Zimmer stuff. Their chemistry works well, and I think Cillian Murphy kind of brings the believable, because if you have a crap actor, you're not going to believe it, and that's going to really, really damage the ending of the film. But the way that Cillian Murphy and Pete Postlethwaite do it is fantastic, and it's the way it's directed too.
Yeah, totally. And we've only really forgotten one character, but I think we could bring him up quickly, as Ken Watanabe as well. I haven't seen him in much stuff, obviously, since then. I've seen Godzilla, and I saw Last Samurai as well. He's a great actor, and he's really the character that the whole plot hinges around off if you take Cobb out of the equation. He's the one who wants them to perform Inception. He's the one who gets wounded in the first level, and then that has repercussions bleeding all the way down into the other levels of the dream. And then at the end, it's his realization when he wakes up on the plane, if you believe he woke up on the plane. Yeah, he's great, and I'd like to see some more stuff from Ken Watanabe, and I'd like to see him come up in more Nolan films, to be honest, other than Batman Begins, obviously.
I was going to say, because he was in Batman Begins, but it wasn't...
Yeah, I forgot he was until I just mentioned that bit, yeah.
It's kind of, I see him more as a kind of cameo where he's incredibly unimportant to the plot. Last Samurai is fantastic. I think the issue with him is that I don't think America's adapted to him properly, where he's suitable. You look at Last Samurai, I see that more as a Japanese production. He's incredible in that. But taking him into America as it has, definitely, I think Inception was the perfect film for it. And I think there was this one with, what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. Right. McConaughey, that's the one.
Yeah.
They were in a film together this year, incredibly hyped up. Apparently it was terrible, so...
Oh, is that the one that was booed at Cannes?
Yeah, it was like Sea of Trees, where they're going to do like a suicide in a very famous Japanese location. It's kind of like you've got a Japanese guy, but just give him a normal role. Godzilla, he's only there to say Godzilla, but in this, in a non-racist way, you can have a white guy playing that role, you could have an Indian, you could have a Chinese man, you could have anyone doing that role. But the fact that it gives it him, it works awesome. But also, he has one of the funniest lines of the film, where they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't just need the private airplane, we need the whole thing." And he's like, "That's why I bought the company."
Yeah,
And
and oh, sorry,
I was
Cam.
just that's like a Bruce Wayne moment, but it's funny though, and the comedy, there's not much of it, but the few one-liners work quite very well in this.
Yeah, and the humour as well. And Christopher Nolan's sort of a revered filmmaker in terms of not having any humour in his films. And whilst I will agree that most of them, when you look at them, are very cold and sort of distant, you do get those little moments in. This is one of my problems with Dark Knight Rises, but I'm not going to get too into that. Even in the his previous two Batman films and this, there are those little moments. And as we said with like Tom Hardy, and you get bits with Ken Watanabe as well, those little bits sprinkled in just help sort of not emphasize, sort of improve the viewing performance, because if you took those out it would be very sort of clinical and from A to B to C, but with those in it makes you think, okay, I'm getting to know these characters, I'm getting to know their personality and their banter with each other, and that's what I really like about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so likable, and it kind of improves the characters, as you said. And that's the important bit, because at the end of the day, if you don't align with one of the main characters, it's very hard to stay alongside that film and like get through it. Whereas you get these nice little bits, and it really does make the difference.
And then to counteract that, we obviously get into the action scenes, which is some of the best on-screen action I've seen. I mean, it's so intense, and how the film is made inherently with these different dream sequences. By the end of the film, you essentially get like what, 3 or 4 action climaxes. Like you've got the van falling off the bridge, you've got the elevator explosion, you've got the stuff like in the snowy built-up fortress with that, and then you've got the fourth layer with Ellen Page and Cobb and his wife. So, and it all amalgamates, and the editing in this film's absolutely brilliant as well. Lee Smith, the editor,
Yeah,
how each one feels like its own story, but how it's all interweaved. It's just like one absolutely immense ending climax, and it's perfect. It doesn't get too convoluted. It's exactly what it needs to be, and it all obviously comes to a head at the end in a brilliant way.
yeah. And one thing I want to say is that you've seen it in films. Phantom Menace, for example, you have I think 4 climax fights at the same time. Doesn't work. Inception, it perfectly works, each to its own right. It goes back to the one when it needs to, and you see the knock-on effect of that. The best example is when the van goes over. You get the no gravity fight, one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen, and the fact that it's all practical effects as well. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I think they were turning the set and stuff like that, which is mental. And then, obviously, of course, the most memorable to me, although there is the gravity fight, I've always seen the mountain snow level as an audition to direct a Bond film, because it's literally like a Bond mission and it looks like a Bond film.
Yeah, and I can't remember the Bond film precisely what it was inspired by, but Nolan said that he'd always loved to make a Bond film, and you can definitely see in the whole henchman like skiing down the ramp, definitely indicative of that. And I believe in Spectre as well, we see something similar to that that's going to be in it, so it shows that obviously the influence Nolan had from Bond.
Yeah, it's a kind of classic Bond thing. There's always snow every 3 or 4 Bond films, so just please give him one after Sam Mendes. But
Oh,
Scott,
definitely.
I'll just to say, Spectre looks awesome from today's trailer.
Oh yeah, we'll get into it more on our main show next week. But I honestly I'm not a Bond fan, and that does look probably the best one since Casino Royale in my opinion. But bringing it back to Inception, as you said, with the practical effects and stuff, Nolan's one of the best filmmakers for still doing that, and with a plot like Inception, which all deals with dreams and like really outlandish creations and stuff like that, he could have gone very much the opposite direction and just gone absolutely insane with it. Like he could have had like weird monsters and impossible CGI landscapes, stuff like that. Because obviously it's a dream. It's it's unending the possibilities you could come up with stuff, but he still keeps it to that realism, which some may argue kind of dampens his films. Obviously, like with the Batman films, very realistic again. But I think there's enough of the impossible in this film. Obviously, you have the awesome scene with the never-ending staircase or the impossible staircase. You have the city bending in on itself, all that stuff, and the whole how the outside environment influences what's going on in the dream, like when the rain hits and then it all starts raining in the second level. It's brilliant how it's done, and I think it's just done enough, because any more and it would have been too far-fetched and too unrealistic, but I think he strikes the balance perfectly.
Yeah, you're right. You say some of it sounds a bit bizarre, but when you watch the film, it's so great. And it's kind of like on the first level when you kind of watch it. I remember the first time I saw it when the freight train comes through,
Oh
and it
yeah.
just like made me jump the first time I saw it. And it's kind of like, what's this going doing there? And then you kind of get more and more where it's Leo's dreams are coming in, and it keeps building and building. And it's extreme, but it doesn't feel like it when you're watching it, and it works. The fact that it's dreams makes it more believable in itself, because okay, this could genuinely happen in a dream with all the mental dreams, and that's what I love about it. That there's so much right for it, and I know it's kind of an easy thing to say, but I'm so happy that this film was a success. Because if this would have flopped, he would have been given Dark Knight Rises, but he wouldn't have been given Interstellar. So the fact that he's now got the keys to Warner Bros. is great for cinema in itself, because I've got a very good feeling he's going to keep making original films as long as he can.
And with this film, definitely, and the success it was, this really shows that Nolan now has just got complete and utter carte blanche. Like, he can say, I've got this idea for the movie, and Warner Brothers can go, yeah, make it. Like, he can do anything he wants at this stage, and that's brilliant, because it's good to have that freedom, I think, as a director, and I'm really interested to see what his future projects are. But we talked about the action, and the action is only as good as its score, and man, this is definitely Hans Zimmer's best work, I think, in recent years. This is probably the last truly great beginning to end soundtrack I can think of from him. The ending song, Time, to that ending montage of the film is probably one of my favourite bits of music to a film there is. And you know, you get the very bombastic score for like the intense moments, and now the classic boom, the Inception boom, which is like in every single trailer, which started with this and it hasn't ended yet. It's perfect. And then some of the other music as well for the more haunting or thought-provoking scenes, he has this very sort of weird, eerie, ambient type music, which then again is offset with the more loud action beats of the film, and it's such a great score that you do get this like dreamlike sense from it, and then obviously when time kicks in at the end, it hits you with that emotional gut punch.
Yeah, I think this soundtrack, I mean, I've seen Hans Zimmer live, and the encore, he hadn't done any Inception songs, he wasn't on the track list, but you knew it was coming. And I think when the curtain went down, it comes up, and he does Dream Within a Dream with Johnny Marr on stage. Then he has his percussionist that does Mombasa. They all disappear, clapping. Then the light comes down, and it's just him in the spotlight in the middle on the piano playing Time. And it's without a doubt my favourite piece of music probably like ever made.
And it's such a simple melody as well, but it's just repeated, but it just builds and builds and builds as all the other instruments come into it. And with that bit of the music, not to get like all weird and analytical about it, but that constant beat to it, it reminds me like The Dream and the constants of it, and it sort of, he touched on that more with Interstellar, with the ticking clock for the Interstellar soundtrack, and that really played into that, and obviously the organ music. But with this, I think he just absolutely knocked it out of the park with the soundtrack, and it really, really enhances the film with it.
Yeah, and I know we're going to go into our favourite scenes later, but you get one or two songs that are like so powerfully, so well done. I mean, it's easy to have a great soundtrack and a terrible film. It's easy to have a great film and an awful soundtrack. But the fact that you've got Nolan's best film and, in my opinion, Hans Zimmer's best soundtrack ever, it's so great. And then obviously you kind of look at the offspring of this, where James Newton Howard said, "I can't do Dark Knight Rises because it was Inception was too good. I'm going to be a third wheel." They come back for Interstellar, very different soundtrack. I love it as well. I don't think it's as good, but I mean, how the hell can you do a great soundtrack with a church organ? But they did it.
Yeah, and it totally works for the films. But yeah, we may as well get into our favourite scenes now. This is going to be really, really difficult for me to pick because there's so many good ones. Can I just say the whole movie? Like, can I just take the whole movie as one scene?
It's so hard. I've got one definitive one, but if I've got a second one, I think I know what the second one will be. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. To me, it's a toss-up between two scenes in particular. One has to be the corridor spin, because that is how that was filmed and how it was intermingled in the film with the rolling van. And I just remember seeing that in the cinema, and my mind was blown just seeing this happen. And obviously the camera's static. I think it was filmed on a rotating camera, so the corridor always looked like it was in place. It's just brilliant to watch. It's so awesome. So that's definitely up there. But to me, it's just got to be the final time montage. Like when he wakes up on the plane at the end, from that bit to the end, like I can just take that scene and just watch it on repeat for ages. Just, it's brilliant.
My favourite, and it's an easy but hard choice, is when Cillian Murphy's, he opens up the vault and the hands, I mean, I've got goosebumps saying it now actually. the music comes on, 5 to 8 4 now on the track, he types it
Yeah.
in, then you just have that room where it's just the hospital beds. He
Mm.
opens up the safe and it's the windmill, and then like he's full on like in tears. Then
Mm.
Pete Pothersweet said, not it was disappointed you tried, or
Mm.
I don't know, but without a doubt that's one of my favourite scenes in cinema, and it was so powerful seeing that for the first time, and every time I see it, it still is, because it's a fantastic moment. And the worst bit about that scene was the fact that this the dream that's been implanted in his head, the fact that it's such an emotional scene, yet that's the Inception moment. That's never actually happened. His dad genuinely dislikes him.
And that's sort of the big emotional bit before the big action scene, because I believe I'm playing like the movie in my head now, and that's where Tom Hardy's waiting for that moment to happen before he hits the detonator to blow up the building.
Yeah, and then they go into the next level, then it all kind of winds up in itself. But for me, that moment kind of steals it, and then the second scene, yeah, it's got to be the montage, and when time plays, it's all silent. It builds, it gets better. He's kind of nodding at everyone in the airport, and then it's when he gets back home and sees Michael Caine, and the fact that we haven't even brought Michael Caine is mental.
I was just about to bring that up. I was thinking at the end of my head, I was like, oh my god, we forgot Sir Michael Caine. How the hell did we do that? One of the greatest actors there is. But yeah, I think we should get into that now, the interpretations of the ending, because I remember when you didn't get the cinema experience with this, and I feel really bad that you didn't, because I saw it on one of the opening days, I think. It was a packed crowd for Inception. That ending hit, and you knew it was coming, and when the camera like pans down to the spinning top on the table and it lingers there, I was like, oh my god, they're going to end it on this, aren't they? It cuts to black. The entire audience went like, oh, and there was like saying, no, we need to know if it's a dream or not. But I was just sitting there with a smile on my face. I was like, you couldn't have ended this film better. If you'd have given us a definitive answer, that would have just defeated the entire point of the film.
I know, and thankfully that's what he said in every interview since. He says the ending's yours, it's an ambiguous ending, that's the point of it. That's the fact that he gets asked it every time he does a press conference is kind of sad, but it's also awesome because everyone wants to know. And I think with me, the first time I saw it, obviously there was no crowd, it was just literally me in bed watching this film. I was so happy he was back with his family. When they were smiling, he runs off, and then it just when it cuts back, I was like, no, 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 no. And then I personally think that it's alright because you see the slight wobble, and I have a totem at home. I've tested it many times. It does spin for a good minute, and if it wobbles, it's on its way down. So that's the way I've always seen it.
Yeah, and a lot of people have really read into this film quite a lot, and they say that that was his wife's totem. The totem that Cobb had was his wedding ring, and I think they say if he's got his wedding ring on, he's not in a dream. He
I've
is
heard
in a
this.
dream.
Yeah,
It's something like that. It's vice versa or something like that, and I think that's a really cool theory. And personally, from my interpretation, I believe he's in reality at the end.
yeah, same. But I like the fact that you don't know. It kind of just gives it that like ambitious, like what actually happened. The wedding ring thing's mental because I didn't know about it till about 2 years ago.
Mm.
And I kind of sat there and said, you sometimes you see this in cinema where it's genuinely just a fluke on the prop department. I haven't actually sat it down and gone through it. But if he has genuinely done that every single time, Nolan has done it on purpose. I think it seems too clever to have done it. But you know what? I'm just not surprised at the quality of his work that he would have done that.
And it's the fact that it's never brought up in the film that's just left entirely to the audience's, own analysis, and that's brilliant when a filmmaker can do that because it allows the audience to, go back, watch it however many times they want, pick up on all these little bits. And this is one of those films where every time I put it in, it's like I pick up something different each time, or I notice something I didn't pick up on before, and it's so good when a film can do that. But yeah, the ending, I think that was the perfect place they could have ended it. I mean, I know it's made enough they could do a sequel, and especially with the concept of Inception, you could do a lot with it. You could do a prequel when like the tech first came in, the whole going into dream thing. You could do a sequel and go more outlandish with the dreams and really explore other areas. But I like that it's a little self-contained story, and I think that a sequel would ruin it because if it's a direct sequel, it would have to give you a definitive answer, and I think that would cheapen and ruin the film.
The sequel would need to be 10 seconds long, and it would completely ruin the first film.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to do it. There's been talks, people go, oh yeah, he said he might. He's not going to. I'd rather see an Interstellar sequel, and I don't even want a sequel for that. So, do you know what I mean? My original plan was him to do Justice League, that hasn't happened. It won't happen. Thank God. They kept asking and asking him to do it. He said no. I want to give him credit to that, because him and Joaquin Phoenix, the only people that have turned down big franchises, and they deserve a massive round of applause for that. It could have been very easy for him to come back, get their massive paychecks. The same with Christian Bale. They stuck to their guns. This
Definitely, and we'll get into our final thoughts now. For me, this is Nolan's best film. It's a fantastic science fiction film, but done with a more slightly realistic edge. It's a great heist film, and if you're just a lover of film in general, it's an absolute marvel to watch. If I were to bring up any problems with the film, I would say that I would have liked to have got to know the ensemble cast a bit more. Like, their motivations in the film aren't anything really past they want money from doing the job, and I think if we'd have got a bit of insight into each one of them more and give them a more compelling reason why they joined this job, then I think that would have maybe enhanced the film a bit, but it would have also tacked on about half hour to an already long film. It's the action's fantastic, the emotions right there with it to carry it. The performances are great, the soundtrack's brilliant, and just everything about the film is fantastic. Definitely one to watch, and it's one of the best film endings ever, because like the film, the final shot of that film plants the doubt in your mind, and that's exactly what the film needs to do. It's phenomenal.
this is one of the best films of all time. It's the best film of this decade, one of the best films of this century so far. It's Christopher Nolan's, one of his three masterpieces. Mm-hmm. If you like film, if you dislike film, you have to see this film, because it's going to open your eyes up to another world. If you don't really know film soundtracks, or you never really listen, well, you will notice it on this. This is Hans Zimmer's best. Everyone brings their A game to this party, and it's without a doubt something you can cherish. And the fact that I'm fortunate enough to have seen this film is a thing in itself. I mean, and you hear the stories of people that miss out on these great films, and thank God I never missed out on this, because this is genuinely a film that it's just so well done. I can't really explain it. Everything works from beginning to end. I mean, I know your little thing of the negatives, I can understand that, but it kind of works. You read about the added length, it could have damaged it, I don't know. But yeah, this is... I don't do ratings, but 10 out of 10, 20 out of 10, I don't know, you know me.
Definitely, and you know what? I'm glad we finally got to review this film. It was both our number one pick on our top 10 original films since 2000, and we had to kind of cut ourselves short in that review. But I think definitely doing a review helped get it all out there, and we finally get to talk about it in depth. It's been brilliant. But make sure you comment below. Let us know what you think of Inception. If you haven't seen it, just go and watch it and come back to this. Make sure you rate, like, comment, subscribe, because we're going to be bringing you a load more reviews all through the summer and onwards. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. You can find us on Twitter /cinema_savvy, and on letterboxd.com as well at /cinema_savvy. So, thank you very much for listening to our in-depth review on Inception. Make sure you come back Monday, where we'll have our main podcast show, where we'll be bringing you our review on the recent released Pixar film Inside Out. And yeah, into the following weeks we'll be bringing you loads more reviews, so stick around, and thank you very much for listening.